So hi, welcome everybody. Welcome to the first session back after lunch. So my name's Rob Hubbard. It's my great privilege to be here today as your chair with two wonderful case studies, two great examples of content design from two very different organisations, two very different projects, but certain common themes come from both. So as you know, we're very kind of keen on this bridge idea and ideas that you can take away and use yourself. So I'd encourage you, as you hear the stories from our speakers today, just to try and listen for what those common themes are. And we'll ask you at the end and see what you're coming out with. The other thing I can add as well, I've just been handed a massive box of chocolate. So the best contributions of the session will be rewarded with not any chocolate, Swiss chocolate, in fact. So you can be very, very happy about that. So, as I say, it's my great privilege here to be here with Ivana Dragic from JYSK Nordic, a kind of homeware and furniture and lifestyle shop, big chain of shops, and Lucia Capobianco. Yeah.
Don't worry.
You should see the session after this as well. They're even more difficult names as well. I've really upset somebody. But yeah, Lucia's from the Samaritans, so hugely important organisation. Does some really wonderful things to help people at crisis point. And just to add that the project that Lucia will be sharing with us today. Last week I was at an awards event and it won gold there. And when I travelled down here and was in my hotel room, it was on the television as well. So that was really, really great to see. So, I need the clicker. So just before I hand over to our wonderful speakers, I'd like to get a sense of who we've got in the room and where your head is at. So when it comes to learning design, I'd just like to get you to raise your hand if you think that content is king. So if you raise your hand. So nobody there. Is context king? So there's a few in the room there. Is the user king? So the majority think the user is king. Thank you very much. When it comes to designing within constraints, do you think like, yay, constraints, I love them. So who loves constraints to design within? So just one gentleman there I can see. Who thinks they're a necessary evil? So a good probably 2/3 of you there. Who wishes there were no constraints in their project? So quite a few. That's very interesting. I guess you're probably the more artistic guys who went for C, because kind of design without constraint, that moves into art then. So I think you're probably the creative people, or the more creative. And then how do you feel about user feedback? Is it a case that you don't even ask for it? So has anybody not asked for user feedback on what they're doing? Or is too embarrassed to say that they don't ask for that? So what about you listen, but you don't actually really change that much? Is anybody guilty of that? The odd hand going up from the truthful people, that's very good, thank you. And what about, do you view it as the main way that you reduce project risk? So a whole bunch of you there, thank you. Excellent. All right, that's been really useful for us all. So I shall hand over to Ivana.
Thank you. So yes, we ask the same questions ourselves in JYSK also. So I'm here to share with you our story. What was our project and what the conclusions on these questions were. So I come from JYSK Nordic, as Rob said, but have you ever heard about JYSK? Some of you are nodding, that's nice to hear. Well, yes, I will start with introducing JYSK for the ones who don't know about it. So JYSK is a chain of, international chain of stores. We sell, as Rob said, everything for sleeping and living, as we like to say that. Furniture, mattresses, duvets, pillows, home decoration, well, everything for home. We have 2,600 stores in more than 50 countries now, and we have also 22 approximately thousands of employees. This is our world map that we are very proud of. As you can see, we are there in many countries, and we are very happy to say that soon Ireland and Russia will join on this map. But this is JYSK Group. If we are talking about JYSK Nordic that me and my team are responsible for, then we are talking about 13,000 of employees in now soon to be 22 countries. Some facts about JYSK Nordic. We have 13,000 of employees, as I said, and growing fastly. We open approximately 100 of new stores per year. That means like approximately every 3 to 4 days we open a new store. And then with such a big expansion, we also have 25% of staff turnover. When we underline all of this, then we can also see that we have 3,000 of new employees and approximately 600 of new managers to be recruited, introduced, trained, and developed each year. And we do that preferably with internal appointments. And if you look at this strategy house, and the roof is representing the vision, then you can also see that we want to be customer first choice, but we also want to be employees first choice within the retail. So to be customers first choice, it will highly depend on the quality of the service they will get in the store. And here training takes all the credit. But if you talk about the employees, then these are the results of our last employee satisfaction survey. And we can see here that training and development in JYSK is something that is really one of the main drivers of engagement. 82% of our employees says that they like the training that they receive in JYSK. And actually they choose this one to be as one of the reasons why they work and stay in JYSK. We promise to our employees bring dedication meets possibilities. Even when we recruit, we don't recruit for experience. We prefer to see this attitude because we know that with the training that they will get from the very first day, they will get this experience. And we also promise to them, when you grow, we grow, because we want to grow. And this is definitely the promise that we want to keep. Why I'm telling all of this? We promise to our people, to our employees, together with them actually we came to the conclusion, learning should be available to everyone, at any place, at any time, and we want to make it fun. Learning is important in JYSK, and we want to make this possible. When we would go back and look at our previous training materials that we had, then the reports show very good numbers, I can tell you that. If we would look at our introduction index on onboarding process, then all of our countries had really good results. But then if we would go just a little bit deeper and see what other numbers are saying, then we could actually see that most of our users are going through the slides by clicking on next, 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 next button. Yeah, you are smiling. Yeah, with average of 3 seconds per slide. I mean 3 seconds. It's not even enough to read a slide. Imagine the learning they get from. So that was a straightforward message to us that we need to change something, that we need to make learnings that are really interesting for our learners. If we really expect that our learners go to the trainings and do them, then we need to make them engaging enough to go through it, and to get this attention from them from very first beginning to the very last end. And then it needs to be something that they will bring with themselves to be useful for them in their everyday situations. So we had one task to do, and that was to secure pull versus push attitude in our company. We wanted our courses to be wow, to be something that our users will like. And today we have many possibilities, as you can see downstairs. There are lots of suppliers offering, well, everything. VR, AR, video games, video scenarios, etc. But then we were thinking about what are our constraints? What are the facts that we need to take into consideration? Or as we call it in JYSK, what are our challenges? So we are fast. In that period, we wanted to change our materials quickly all of our basics materials for store staff, all of our introduction program. And I'm talking about approximately 10 M-learnings, but times 20 languages. If we would choose for some of those, that would really slow us down. So that was one constraint that we had. Then we are a fast-growing and also fast-changing company. We open new markets. We change our tools to be up-to-date. We change our procedures. So every single change that we needed to make, no matter how small it was, we needed to make in all our materials, and times 20 plus languages again. So that was also one thing to take into consideration. If we would take some video scenarios, that would mean probably shooting all over again these videos. And if we are talking about narration in local languages, it would take ages to change this. And then we also needed to take into consideration that sometimes one size doesn't fit all. No matter how much we really want that our trainings are same in all countries, to keep the same structure, to have our employees trained in the same way, there are small differences between countries, if nothing else than because of these law regulations that there are in the countries. And then again, if we are considering VR, because we were considering VR, we were thinking about, okay, we need to have this cost about making the training, but then again, also headsets to provide in each single store. Even if it's the simplest one, it is still a cost. And we are lucky, the lucky ones, that we don't have to fight with our management for a budget for the trainings, because they are fully aware of everything that actually the training brings. But we are still a cost-conscious company. And that meant that this cost is something that we needed to take into consideration. If we put everything together, does it really pay off? Can it make it in simpler way? Do we want to have VR only because we can? Yeah. And then if we would ask ourselves, what is the final goal actually that we want to achieve? And then the answer was simple. We just want it to be relevant for business. It needs to be relevant for business. So when you are not sure, why not ask the end users? So we still wanted to have really good materials, but actually at some point we said, okay, why we don't ask them what they want actually, what they think they need from us to engage them in learnings. So this is something that our employees came with. Less of boring technical text. That was a really clear message. They didn't want that. More interactivity. And we use this 2080 principle in all our classroom trainings, and also in the face-to-face trainings in the store, which we called on-the-job training. So why shouldn't we use it also in M-learnings? There must be a way how we can do that. They also asked for short chapters instead of long M-learning. So they could jump in and out every time they want. And they want it to be built in a way that they can relate with that. So some real store situations, something that they can really relate to. In the end of the day, it should be useful in everyday situations. They really need to use it in their stores on their daily work. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense for them. And those were good inputs, actually. So we kept on asking. Sometimes we in head office think that we know every possible solution, that we know how everything should look in a store. But actually, are we there with the customers? Do we really speak with them? Do we know their needs? Do we know what they are asking? Do we know their doubts? No, but our store does. So we invited the store staff to the workshops, and together with our supplier, we sat for 2 days talking about, okay, what are the possible situations that they are really facing with and they are struggling with, so they can learn from it. And then we also think about, when we had the list of the possible situations, what is the perfect outcome? What should be the proper solution for those situations? And with the help of our supplier, we also said, okay, how we can present it in interactive way. So this is, in the end, what we came up with. We introduced the mentor figure, as we have it in the store. Our mentors in the store, they are present there. They are speaking with our new employees. They are teaching the technical stuff, yes, but they are also asking questions. They are giving the feedback. They are giving the praises. So why not to have it here? Then we also said that the 5 steps poster, actually, this is our 5 steps process that is teaching us, our employees, how to communicate with the customer through these 5 steps. We chose this poster to be our main menu that our learners could go through and navigate through the course. So each of these steps will be a short chapter, and each of these short chapters will be locked until the previous is done. So that's how they can jump in and out every time they want. If they have only 15 minutes, they will just go to one chapter. If they have more time, they will go through the end. And then we started to think about, okay, how we can avoid this text. So instead of putting text inside, we said, okay, let's ask them questions and let's make them think about the possible answer, the solution. Or maybe to find the difference. This is the exercise, for instance, that we have. You have 5 minutes to open the store and it needs to be ready for your customers. How can you, what is wrong, what you need to fix? Or how to give tips on maintenance, on cleaning our products to the customer. But we also thought about these real situations and about possible branching scenarios, and in the end, that showed, in the end, as a biggest wow factor for our learners. We made possible situations with the real customers. They are virtual, of course, but they are asking real questions, and they needed to decide which step they will go. Depending on their answer, they would go rather on one way or another. And they would receive the feedback from the mentor immediately. Okay, what was wrong, so they can learn from? Or if the feedback was good, actually the customer was giving the feedback. Yes, they were interested in the conversation. They would buy the product in the end. Maybe even they would buy additional or more expensive one. Jan from the video demo is our EVP from HR. He didn't pass the course, so he needed to repeat it. But in the end, as we said, it needs to be relevant for the business. So my friend tells often, numbers never lie. So let's take a look at some numbers in the end. When we launched the sales and service course, then actually more than 90% of employees took this course. And I'm not talking about only new employees. All of them, 90% of the whole organization took the course. And we hoped in the beginning for the result of 80% in each country of PEST, successful PEST results. And if you can see the graph, most of the countries really did above 80%. Some of the countries even 100%. That means that each single employee in the country took and successfully passed the course. Each single one of them. And after rolling out a couple of courses, we again asked for the feedback. So we first asked them for a question. Please rate how satisfied you were with the old e-learning materials. And if you look at the top rate from 8 to 10, only 40.2% of them said actually that they like it quite much. But when we ask them how satisfied are you with the new M-learnings, then this number jumps to 81.2%. It's a high jump. And when we ask them, okay, what do you appreciate the most with the new e-learnings that you have, with M-learnings? Then the most common answer was actually using real situations. That was very helpful for them. And the feedback was actually, this we need in all our materials. So what was the impact on the business? Our sales increased of 12% compared with the previous year. We had a huge increase on customer service satisfaction. And the online sales increased more than 40%. And this online data actually is something that tells a lot to us, because in the previous materials, we didn't had a word about online sales. We didn't talk about that our store staff should sell also online. But then we started to teach them, okay, if we have also online assortment, and if you have a customer who has his own needs, and you need to fulfill those needs, then maybe the alternative, and the better alternative even, is an online universe. So we teach them how to go online and show also our customer what is there available for them. So this 40% is really good result. But if you ask me, is it only because of the trainings? What do you think so? No. I would also say I don't think so. Because no matter how good M-learning, in my opinion, is, if you don't combine it with a face-to-face training, then it will not bring results. And then again, if we are talking about the trainings in general, no matter how good they are, it will not bring the company results if you don't combine it with a really good company strategy. But did we help? Well, then I would really like to say, I hope a lot. Yeah. Rob?
Okay, brilliant. Well, we're actually, so that was brilliant, Ivana, thank you. So we've actually got a little bit of time. If there are any questions or observations, I should use my microphone, shouldn't I? Yeah, we've got just a few minutes. If there's any questions or observations, I've certainly got, there was a question I've got. I don't know if anybody else has one out there. You said about the ratio of kind of information to interactivity of like 20 to 80. So is that 20 information to 80?
Practice.
80 practice, yeah,
yes.
Very good. And then you replicated that, you took that from the classroom and you used
It's
that.
what we do normally in face-to-face trainings and classroom trainings. So that was a challenge to do, but I think we made it.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, we'll have time for questions at the end as well. But what we'd like to ask you to do now is you get to practice some of this stuff. And I would remind you, again, that there is chocolate at stake here for the best contributions. So, is it, you know... Is the clicker... Oh. It's so going to be worth it, everybody. It really is. It's going to blow your minds. Yeah. Hey, there we go. So basically, what we've got here is a kind of simplified version, I believe, of your sales process. So This is a retail sales situation. We picked something that we thought many of you would be familiar with, as if not professionally, then certainly as shoppers. And then what we'd like you to do, and we're going to divide you into kind of rows here. So it's brilliant to see that there's so many people come in that you guys are sat along the back. You may want to come forward and join tables. So there's plenty more space here at the front as well to do this. But what we'll do is ask you, so this row here, so this kind of row of tables in front of me, all you guys here, we'd like you to work on this stage of the sales process here and think about how you can come up with possible activities or approaches that make this a kind of realistic practice activity rather than a kind of theoretical information-based one. So, think of that 2080 that I just asked about. So that's you guys here. You guys in the middle, so this kind of row here, down the middle. So you are determine customers' needs, so we'd like you to do the same for that. And then you guys here, so this left-hand row, and then also our two additional tables there, we'd like you to work on the sales presentation. So we're going to give you 10 minutes now to kind of come up with some practical ideas for what you how you could approach this training. And then we're going to get some ideas back from you. I'll be out there roving with my microphone and with the box of chocolates. So it's all to play for, people. You've got 10 minutes. Here we go. See who's going to win themselves a Swiss chocolate bar. The hands are going up already, I can see. I'm getting called over here. Oh, there's a lot of confidence from this table.
Hi, Rob. In the interest of chocolate, can I say the beard looks fantastic? You look really handsome. So what we thought about was, in terms of making it engaging, trying to make a scenario that's as rooted in the real world as possible. So in terms of the pre-store preparation, a video walkthrough of the store with various things that are incorrect or not done properly. So it's very much what the user may actually do in real life. Bring in elements of gamification if you want. You've got a countdown time before the store doors open, that kind of thing as well. And in terms of the consequences of it, if you don't identify all the elements, then the video plays through, and let's say there's something which hasn't been mopped up on the floor, then the video plays through and something slips on the floor and falls over, that kind of thing, to illustrate consequences. But the other thing about this is, rather than just identifying the errors here, really the night team should have left the store in good condition first. So it's partly trying to stop it happening in the first place, rather than fixing it after it's gone wrong.
Yeah, very good. You certainly you worked it for the chocolate there, and you threw in a great compliment at the start, and I'm very easily bought. So absolutely, I should just check though. They do have nuts in them, so there's no nut allergies. No. Yeah. Okay. So those without nut allergies. Thank you. Very kind. So who else do we have that would like to put an idea forward and win some Swiss chocolate? This table here. So what ideas did you have? Who's going to be our spokesperson?
If you want. So basically, we came with several ideas like the jeopardy. So you have the answer, find the good question. What is a typical good or bad question? Stuff. And also put yourself in the shoes of a customer. What sort of question would you receive? How would you perceive this type of question? Yeah. And how would you answer to that and stuff like that?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Excellent. Yeah, great. Chocolates all around. So are you all getting really jealous now? These guys, it's a walk in the park for these guys. It's like they do this for a living. So what about, what have we got from our third row then over here? We've got some ideas here. Brilliant. Thank you.
This is sales presentation, yeah?
That's right.
Yeah.
Sales presentation.
What we decided was that we should really present the benefits of the product that meet the identified needs of the customer to avoid feature dumping. When we came on to the second part, how we will make sure the customer knows what he's paying for, and that comes down to the salespeople really understanding the products well, down to maybe visiting the factory, understand what they're made of, and really clearly understanding how the products can benefit the needs of the customers, to make sure that it's, again, relevant, and really showing the customer that you've listened and you've valued what they've had to say to them. Then the third point, where it's how to focus what the customer gets. It's really to make the content relevant to their needs and avoid feature dumping again. And the consequences, if we don't explain why one product is more expensive, the consequences will be that the customer sees the product as a Me Too product and sees no differentiation.
I see. Yeah, excellent. Very well earned, I would say. That's superb. So, I mean, as you probably got from this activity, that you're kind of treating people like grown-ups, and just the mere act of kind of asking rather than telling will engage people, so making it much more realistic. And don't feel that you need to kind of front-load it with content to give them information to do this stuff. Like, just flipping that on its head so they have a go with their existing knowledge, and they don't do so well. That's a great way to learn, because then it encourages them to go to the content, learn more, and fill those gaps. And it's much more the way that we've learned as we've evolved as well, through trial and error and getting different results. So, no? Okay, brilliant. There's even some left as well. That's great. So we now have another wonderful project where we can see many of these principles in practice as well with Lucia. So I shall hand over to you. I think it's just there.
Brilliant, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm a little bit nervous, so please forgive me if my voice has a wobble. As a Samaritan, I'm much more used to listening than talking. So, as it says on there, my name's Lucia. I'm an officer, an L&D officer with Samaritans, and it was my absolute privilege to work on this Wellbeing in the City project last year, which I want to talk to you a little bit about today. So back at the end of 2016, my fundraising colleagues made a bid to the Lord Mayor of London's charity appeal to be one of his charities of the year. And we were successful, which was wonderful. But Samaritans, being what it is, decided it wasn't going to just spend that year fundraising, which is what the Lord Mayor's appeal is about. We decided we wanted to do something, to give something back. And as it happened, the Lord Mayor that year was a PwC partner who had a huge interest in wellbeing and wellbeing in the workplace. So this is how our learning, our project, Wellbeing in the City, came into being. Now, one of the things we had to, when we were started out creating this piece of learning, one of the things we were very conscious of was we needed to understand the audience we were creating it for. So Samaritans is a grand old lady. She was 65 last year, and she has a lot of listening experience. So we knew we could bring our listening experience, the experience that our volunteers have on a day-to-day basis, to this project. But we needed to understand the audience. So working very closely with PwC, we set up various focus groups because we wanted to understand who we were creating the learning for and what their needs were. The one thing you don't want to do is create this wonderful all singing, all dancing piece of learning and then find nobody uses it because they don't feel it's relevant to them. So that was very important. So when we started off with the focus groups, we really wanted to know what it was that mattered to them. What was important to be in the learning, what would engage them, what did they want. And these faces that you see on the screen, these people all came forward actually to tell their story and talk about what it was like for them in the workplace. And some of them have made interventions and some of them had interventions made on them. I should have said, I've completely forgotten to tell you what the learning is, haven't I? That's my nervousness. So what we did was we decided we wanted to create two pieces of learning. One was based on active listening. So we wanted to bring the skills that our volunteers have and give them to people in the workplace so that they were able to start a conversation with a colleague if they thought someone wasn't doing so well, something was wrong, if they were struggling. We wanted to give them confidence to be able to say to somebody, "Are you okay?" and then carry out the conversation and actually listen and hear what was being said. The other piece was around well-being, and we call it the well-being tool. And that was very much around, it's a video-based tool, and it talks about myth-busting. It talks about signs and signals that you might see when somebody isn't doing so well. It talks about why it is good to make an intervention, to ask somebody if you're okay. What happens if they say, no, they're not okay, where you then go. And actually then, really importantly, how to look after yourself. Because in all of that, your well-being is as paramount as anybody else's. So when we spoke to our focus groups, the overriding thing that came through about what mattered to them was they wanted to hear real-life stories. They didn't want to feel things were scripted. They wanted to have things that they could engage with that spoke to them on their level. They were very clear that you could very easily pick up when things have been scripted, when they're not true to life. So as I say, these wonderful people actually came forward. We put out a call to see if there were people that would be prepared to come forward and tell their stories. And they are part of the learning tool, the video piece, where they talk about what it was like either being on the receiving end or the giving end. I have to say, the day we filmed them was the most powerful thing I've ever seen, because actually most of them did it in one take, and it is their words. So I'd encourage you, if you can, to look at the wellbeing tool. When you look at those case studies, what you see is their words. Nothing was scripted. It was absolutely down to them. We wanted to know what they already know about emotional health, mental health, and actually Samaritans. So just as a quick question, how many of you in this room have heard of Samaritans? Okay, so that's positive, quite a few of you. There's often a perception out there when we ask that question. We ask people, what do you think Samaritans does? And the overriding perception still is that we are a suicide helpline. Now, while that is so, we do speak to people who are contemplating ending their life. Actually, Samaritans is much, much more. It's much more about emotional health. And what we want to do is start conversations earlier so that we're getting to people before they reach crisis point. So by asking our focus groups, what do you know about Samaritans, it was enabled us to gauge where we start, what our start point is. And actually, off the back of that, as well as the two pieces of learning, we created an organisational implementation guide so that when it was rolled out, people could talk about Samaritans to their teams, to the audiences they were doing, so that they could explain exactly who Samaritans are and what they do. So that helps us as well with our branding and perception. How and where do they want to learn? That was another key one for us, because this was never going to be a mandatory piece of training. So it wasn't like a compliance piece that you have to do and it has to tick the box on the LMS to say, I have done that for this year. This was very much about people wanting to know more. So how could we engage them? How could we drive them to it? What could we create and in what format that meant it was easily accessible for them, and that they would look at it. Now, because we're looking at a city audience, what came back very clearly to us was that people felt they would probably do it on a commute. They might look at it at work, they might do it at home, but actually they wanted something bite-sized that they can dip in and dip out of, access very easily, and pretty much take anywhere, be mobile. So that's what led us to create the resources in such a way that they're fully device agnostic, so you can do it on your mobile, on your PC, on your laptop, on your tablet. And one of the things that came through too, people really wanted podcasts, actually, interestingly enough. Now, for us, that budget-wise wasn't feasible this time around, but it is something that we might look at the next time. But for that audience, they were very interested in that. But we tried to do the next best thing. And we've designed it in such a way that it's... you can dip in and dip out. You don't have to do it in a particular order, and you can just if you want to remind yourself of something, you can dip in, have a quick look, come back out again. So it's very, very easy and tracks. And then this was a big one, and it's a big one for Samaritans because as an organisation, we're very conscious with the human element. We don't want to judge. We don't want to you know, you would not want to make people feel bad. So we wanted to know what we should avoid, and particularly in terms of language, when you're talking about emotional health and mental health, what is it that turns people off? What is it that people find gives stigma? So we wanted to know from them, you know, if particular phrases, words, what would make them disengage. And people were very clear that they felt it should be positive language, not negative. They felt a lot of the time when you're talking about well-being, mental health, emotional health, it's talked about as a problem, it's an issue, and they didn't want that. They wanted it to be more positive. They didn't want to be patronised. They didn't want to be dumbed down. And it was very important to get that right, get that balance right. So what I'm going to do is show you the trailer, so you can see a snapshot of the end result of what we created. I'm going to stop talking because I think this will speak for itself, hopefully.
After I had the conversation with my manager, Adrian, it was a mixture of emotions. There was a significant amount of relief that someone else knew what was happening to me. There was a fair amount of fear because I think it meant that I was having to face something that I'd been ignoring to the best of my abilities was happening. But overwhelmingly, I think it was relief that perhaps there was an end to this, or that there was a way out, that there was a way to make it stop.
I'd work through lunches, I'd get home later, I'd work pretty much every evening. You don't always say what the cost is, what the personal cost is.
There was this constant sensation of just trying to get by. I was overwhelmed by everything that was going on. I just really was wanting to keep everything under control and fix everything myself, and the reality is that I couldn't.
I think if I look back on good things that I've done, that's probably one of the best. Because I was in an absolute state. I was suicidal and I was really not coping. And I think it would have been very easy to just give up at that point. And I think what Adrian did was make me realise that there was help. I don't know if he realises how important it was to me and what a difference it made.
So that was the trailer that we used to launch. We launched last year in April. It still gives me goosebumps a little every time I see it. I'm very, very proud to have worked on it. I think if there was one thing I would stress It's listening. It's listening. When you're working out a project, when you're working out with your learning what you're going to do, the big key is to listen to what people want. And that's it from me. Thank you. Too fast. Too fast.
Well, I think that's the first time I've been up on stage and actually had tears in my eyes, so that's a completely amazing project, and we're so privileged to have you both here today. I asked you at the start, what were the common themes that you saw come out of those two projects? Very different organisations, very different aims, but I think there were definitely some common themes there. So, did anybody pick up on anything that you noticed in both?
Real stories, not fake stories. The real things that people encounter, not some designed by committee scenario that we all end up with that's so bland.
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely, authenticity. Anything else that we picked up on? Or any other reflections or any questions that you guys have for our speakers? Did you notice?
Yeah, I think obviously the element of getting users involved in the process and asking the user what they want goes a long way towards making sure the content you create, whatever form that may take, is the right thing for those particular users. So I wondered what are the various techniques, forums, methods, mediums you use to get that user insight?
Yeah, great question. So how did you engage with your users in your projects?
For us, it was through the focus groups, and then we put calls out on social media for people to ask if people would be prepared to come forward and tell their stories. So that then helped to inform and make it slightly richer for us. Yeah.
And in our organization, there is really a strong training culture, and people really feel motivated to participate if we invite them. So actually the feedback that we got now is that they want to do it more and more and more because they can see the benefits from it. And if it's useful for them, then they will just seek for more, and that is exactly what is happening. So after these e-learnings that we did with our organization, we also started to invite them, not only store staff, but depending on which level of organization we prepare the training materials. We don't prepare the training materials only for store staff, of course. But we had store manager trainee program that they were invited to participate, to give these relevant inputs. Then also district manager trainee program, retail manager trainee program. So actually we started to invite them, and it's kind of an also honor for them because they are creating something that 13,000 of people will use in the end. And I don't think there is a better motivation of that. So they really like to be invited in these kind of projects. Yeah.
I thought it was fascinating how and I say this to so many people, but the users really do hold the key. And for these guys, they asked the right questions and they really listened, and they got answers which then informed and shaped the approaches that they take. And that's why their projects have been so successful and have had such impact. Are there any other further questions or observations? Well, in which case, we shall release you early. But please, once again, a big round of applause for our wonderful speakers.